Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Side Hustles and Stuff podcast, episode 17. My name is Yuri, and I'm joined by Keishi.
Hey Yuri, how are you today?
I'm doing much better. How about you? Since yesterday, much better, for context.
I'm not bad. So what happened yesterday?
I had a massive headache yesterday, probably from getting dehydrated or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been hot the last few weeks, but luckily it seems like it's getting a bit cooler starting today.
Yeah, I was out earlier. It was like 29 degrees, and there was a bit of a breeze going on, so it was pretty good.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. So what are you drinking today? We got to cover the most important topic first.
Yeah, we should call it the Japanese Drinks Podcast instead of the Side Hustles
Exactly.
and Stuff Podcast. Yeah, so I try not to drink much soda these days, but in the name of bringing interesting things here, I got a salt and lychee Pepsi the other day. So,
Salt and lychee Pepsi.
So I got to open it and try it. How about
right
yourself?
now, live? Wait, are you going to try it live on air with us in this episode?
I'm opening it right now, and I'm about to take the first sip.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, get ready. This is the moment of truth. Make sure to.
I can taste all three things in there. I can taste the cola, I can taste the salt, and I can taste the lychee.
Are there any health benefits to having a salt and lychee Pepsi? Like, are there any benefits written on the side, or is it just a flavor?
I think it's a flavor, but I don't think it really works with Coke. But there's also this salt and lychee like rehydration drink sort of thing for hot summer days.
Yeah.
Here, so maybe that's what they're going after. Whether just marketing or whether there's any real benefits to it, I don't know. Probably just a way to make it taste different from the usual Pepsi.
Yeah. I have something similar. On my table, I have something called Aqua Solita. And this is one of those rehydration drinks. I'm not drinking it now, but I downed half of it on the way home today. Basically, it's like, has like a slightly apple, like a subtle apple flavor and subtle salty flavor. But again, it's like you said, it's like a rehydration drink, and you should drink it when you're outside and you're sweating and you're losing water, and has that electrolytes for you. But since I'm home now, I'm not sweating. There's no really. I also have water here to drink instead.
Yeah, I have water too. That's a must.
And I have, as usual, Tully's coffee, Barista Black.
Awesome. Yeah, I think this is a good time to remind our listeners of the show notes URL, probably, right? Because we started posting the pictures of the drinks in the show notes. So
yeah. So if you want to see Keishi's salty lychee Pepsi, it's in the show notes, which is sidehustlesandstuff.com/E17.
Yeah, and we'll also post some more useful stuff in there. So even if you're not interested in Pepsi or in Aqua, whatever Yuri's drink was, still check it out.
Definitely. So drinks aside, I see you have something else here. Not drinks, but snacks.
Yeah, so it's not the main topic for today, but I thought I'd bring this up because I thought it was a pretty smart move by Pringles, and I'm sure there's other companies doing something similar. But I'm in this group on Facebook called Tokyo Expat Network, even though I'm not really an expat. But somebody posted a photo of mystery flavor Pringles in there, and I thought that's a pretty smart idea. What do you think? As a marketer, as a copywriter.
So no one knows what the flavor is?
Yeah, that seems to be the thing. So at first I thought it's like one of the usual flavors, except you don't know which one you get. But it actually seems like they put together some completely new flavor just for the Japanese market. Actually, it says on the packaging. Yeah, so now they're marketing that as the mystery flavor. What do you think about it as a marketer and a copywriter? I think it's a pretty neat trick, but
yeah, I think it's good because in marketing, curiosity is a big element. I know that there's companies do offer such things as mystery sales, where they entice a user to click through and find out how much they'll save. So if that worked on that, then it'll probably work on Pringles. Like, buy this can and find out what kind of taste it is. On top of that, the fact that you're saying that people are kind of arguing in the comments over what taste it is, that's even better because, again, yeah, you have like people talking about the product for free and arguing about it or whatever. It creates discussion. So I think it's a pretty clever trick.
Yeah, I think so. The post was posted like 3 hours ago, and it's got like 30 comments. Some of them are serious, others are funny, and it sparked the discussion. And the interesting thing is that everybody seems to think it tastes like something different. Somebody calls it straight up charcoal. Others say it tastes like barbecue. Some say it tastes like teriyaki. There's a smart guy saying marketing.
Mm-hmm. Was that you?
No. There's somebody saying it tastes like baby puke. Cowtown.
Maybe what they actually did was just really put random tastes in every single package. They really randomized it so no one gets the same thing.
Could be.
I was like, what
But
does it taste like?
yeah, we got to get a package of these and open it during the next podcast next Sunday when we record this.
But we got to, like when you tried that Pepsi, when I'm sure
Yeah.
you opened it on your end, but we didn't hear that. Like when
Oh,
you
I,
open
I, no,
soda.
I put it next to the mic, but I think I have like a noise canceling tool turned on,
Mm.
and I guess that killed the moment. But
Because we needed to hear the and then we needed to hear the gulping sounds.
yeah, but I thought this is genius, especially if it's executed well. Like every time I order Domino's pizza here, there's like this thing which is like mystery coupon.
Oh
They
yeah.
give you 3 boxes and you choose one, and like every time I choose a coupon that's less than the coupon that I use regularly, that they have like ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, why even bother? But so I think when doing these mystery things, they have to be executed really well.
Yeah.
But I think when executed nicely, they can work
Very well.
amazing. It's kind of like with like last time we talked a bit about trading cards and collectors cards.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost kind of like that, right? It's like you open a package and you don't know what's gonna be inside, so you want to buy another package.
I remember that with Pokemon cards.
Yeah, Pokemon cards. It's like a not socially frowned upon form of gambling.
Yeah. There was definitely that moment where you buy the pack and you tear it open and then you start going through the cards to see what's there. That's like the part of the process. It's like it's
That's the
one
most
thing to
exciting
own.
part.
Yeah, it's the one thing to have the cards, but it's another thing to actually like to have that moment of anticipation where you're opening it up to see what's inside and going through the cards to see what's inside. That's the magical feeling.
Yeah, it is. It's like what do they call it? Schrodinger's cat or something. Like until you open it, you never know if it's alive or dead.
Yeah.
And it's like until you open the package, you never know if it's gonna be like a bunch of whatever Rattatas or if it's gonna be like a super rare Charizard or whatever the Pokemon were.
Rattata? How do you pronounce it? Rattata?
I don't know what's the right way to pronounce
I thought it was Rattata.
Okay.
It's like Rattatta. Rattata? I don't know. I could be saying it wrong.
Okay, whatever it is, it's like a mouse.
Yeah, it's the rat that you don't want to get, or the Zubat.
Good old Pokemon times.
Yeah, when there were still 150 of them, when it could still be managed.
Yeah, I probably remember the 150, but I don't know like many of the ones beyond that.
They went past they probably went past 150 a long time ago. Here's a funny thing, off topic, but back in the day, like I don't know, I was maybe in junior high school or elementary school. I remember like my neighborhood had a kind of at the end of every summer there would be like a big fair and just like people setting up shops and whatever, and just like I don't know what it was, just people set up shops and little stands and the whole neighborhood comes out and looks at stuff and buys stuff. And there was a Pokemon card there before anyone even knew what it was, and they were like they had like the screens going, and I took a VHS home. And it was just like a promotional VHS of like Pokemon. Yeah. And I remember playing it, and like you have Ash saying that Pokemon's coming soon, blah blah. It's going to take America by storm, and they were definitely right about that. But how old? But that was so long ago. Like I was a kid back then. I'm surprised that it was such a thing back then, and also in Japan too.
Yeah, I used to watch it as a kid, and it's definitely one of the most successful franchises there's been.
From like a business standpoint, it makes sense to do more than 150. And they're like, why are we limiting ourselves?
Yeah, and it's like at some point I think it just became like opening an encyclopedia of animals or plants and slapping eyes and mouth and and stuff like that on whatever pictures they see inside. But I think I love Pokemon. I think it's a great thing.
Did you get red or blue? Because remember there were at first you could choose either Pokemon Red or Pokemon Blue, the Game Boy version.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I had red, just to put it on record, the Charizard one.
And I think there was also a yellow, which was like a special.
Oh yeah, Pikachu. That was like I think they came out with that a bit later after Red and Blue, where Pikachu follows you around.
Oh yeah, that's right. Pikachu is following you around, and I think in Japan the blue one was green instead.
Oh wow! I guess like back then, it's whichever one you chose kind of defined you as a person. Either you went with blue or red. I don't really know what it means like what it means in terms of like what you are as a person.
Yeah.
But people are like, are you blue or red?
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing that it's been going on for like 20 years, and they turned it into movies and TV series and games and
Yeah.
trading cards and merchandise, and it really fascinates me because it's at the end of the day just like intellectual property, right? It's not like they own a gold mine, or it's not like they own a whatever. It's not like they own a port somewhere or something. It's just an idea that they had, and they literally put it down on paper,
Mhm.
and then it turned into like a multi-billion-dollar franchise.
Yeah.
And that's also why I really love Disney, the
Mhm.
Walt Disney company. It's just amazing what they managed to do with essentially with ideas.
Yeah. There should be like well, I don't know if we're ready for it, but there should be a business case study of Pokemon. Because, yeah, they took that and they went everywhere with it. Movies, TVs. I'm sure there's like a Pokemon Center here somewhere in Tokyo.
Yeah, there's stores, they call them Pokemon.
The trading cards. There's like a lot of ways that they're making money.
Yeah, definitely. And somehow, like, aside from Walt Disney, the Japanese seem to be really good at creating this, right? Like, you've got Super Mario, you've got Pokemon, you've got like Hello Kitty. And I was looking at like quite a while back, I was looking at the ranking of the highest grossing franchises like that.
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of them, again, and a lot of them were Japanese and some were American.
Which ones were American?
Let me see.
Just out of curiosity.
Okay, so according to Wikipedia, Pokemon's number 1. Hello Kitty is number 2. Winnie the Pooh is number 3.
Oh wow.
Mickey Mouse is number 4. Star Wars is 5. Anpanman, another Japanese character. Disney Princess, Super Mario, Marvel, Harry Potter. Yes, so essentially 90% is Japanese or American.
Oh wow.
And then you've got Harry Potter, which is British. Yeah, we should do an episode sometime looking at this.
And I guess like it's also a bit of a ray of hope to anyone that's in the business of either comics or stories, because essentially that's what Pokemon is and was, and the same thing with say Star Wars and Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think that like we talk about side hustles a lot here. That's the name of the show, but I think the beautiful thing nowadays is that before you had to create essentially a multi-billion-dollar revenue franchise to make it like meaningful on any sort of scale.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like if you're an artist or somebody, you can build yourself an audience of not like billions of people, but just a few thousand or a few hundred, and you can make a decent living, right? So I think that's the beautiful thing nowadays is you don't need to create Pokemon, which brought in like $100 billion in revenue from all the different types of products related to it. Instead, you can create whatever you want, like your own character universe or something. And all you need to do is find like 100 fans, 1,000 fans, 10,000 fans, and you can probably make a living.
Yeah, we should do an episode on how to build up a social account, because a lot of it is on social media. That's how you have artists, for example, on Tumblr or Pinterest or Instagram, building followerships.
Yeah, we should look into that a bit. I think it's interesting. I'm not an artist, but I know there's a lot of artists who say that you can make money off art.
Yeah.
So I think we should look into those that actually manage to do so without compromising their art too much. Like you can never not compromise your art at all and make money, I think. But I'm sure there's a way to do it without like completely selling yourself off or whatever somebody might call it.
Or I guess in business, we would call it pivoting, finding another angle that works.
Yeah, exactly. You could call it that.
All right. So we actually kind of went from mystery Pringle flavors to Pokemon to artists.
But we're still not at the main topic of today, right? So
we're not.
What are we talking about?
So today what we're talking about is what we wish we knew earlier, which is kind of like, if you were talking to your younger self, maybe 10 years back or 5 years back, what would you want them to know? And we're taking this topic and we're applying it from the side hustle perspective. What we wish we knew earlier when starting or doing our our side hustles years back.
You want to kick off with the first one?
Yeah. All right. And for the first one, I guess the first one for me is not starting an email list earlier. And the reason I say that is because in a case of having a website versus, say, an Instagram profile or a Facebook page or a Pinterest page. In the case of a website, how you are able to retain a community, an audience, or a reader base is through your email list. In the past, there was something called RSS feeds. Those aren't really used much. And nowadays, not everyone really comes back to the website again and again, unless it's like Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. If we come across a website on Google that we searched for, maybe we liked it, maybe we read an article or two on it. But from the website creator's perspective, is like now that we liked his stuff, he wants us back. And how does he get us back? How do we get the readers back? And that is through starting an email list. So that's part one. Part two is email has a lot better dollar ROI than other channels, say social media. And it's not understood quite why, but I do like email from a sense that when you're going through email, it's not like you're bombarded by multiple posts or multiple whatever videos at the same time. You literally go into it one at a time. You open up one, you take a time to scroll through it and see what it's about. Whereas if you're on Facebook, you have like one post above you, one post below. If you're on YouTube, you have like a whole sidebar of like cat videos and people falling out of trees and top 10 pranks. So I think that's why probably email gets better ROI if you send a sale email. And and just in general, just knowing from the business side of it, I know that email makes a lot more money, and I would probably be able to earn more had I had a bigger list. That's one thing I wish I started earlier.
Yeah, I heard it a lot, and I have kind of, I guess, mixed feelings about it, because I think you can build a very, very big and solid business without having to build an email list. Now that said, I think like all the advantages you said of one, owning your audience, and two, like being able to reach them directly and in kind of a, I guess, non-distracted way, you could say, like you were describing kind of. I definitely think those are very beneficial things. Now that said, I also think it really depends on, I guess, kind of type of the blog that you're running. So like I think in your case, it's very specific and it's very oriented towards one outcome, which is becoming better at a certain language, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the case both with your blog, and I think there it makes absolute sense, because you're trying to sell this one solution to these people that are actually seeking the solution, right?
Yeah.
Now I think if you run like a gardening blog or something, you could certainly go that way, I think, but also it depends on like how focused is your content and like what type of solutions are people looking for on your website. Because like if people are looking for something like how to start a garden, then I think it's good, because they're probably looking for like a longer term kind of journey of going from not having a garden at all to like having a nice garden with like a bunch of different plants and stuff like that. So you could probably sell them like books on how to do so and like courses or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing like stuff like how to get rid of, I don't know, this type of weed or something,
Mm-hmm.
Then I think like the type of traffic that you get is like people come to your site, look for the solution, get the solution, and leave back, right? And they're not necessarily interested in following you. So yeah, personally for me, I guess it's 50-50, and I'm also biased because I'm not really building email lists for any of my websites, even though I'm thinking of starting doing so.
Mm-hmm.
And the part I'm reluctant about is that it can get quite expensive, right? Like if you have a list of thousands of people, it's not actually cheap to.
There is, I mean, like aside from list building, there's also list maintenance. Anyone that's not active or hasn't opened an email from you, most companies kind of have like practices in place. Like if you haven't interacted with an email, they're just not going to email you anymore because there's no point.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll send you like a re-engagement email or some sort of, just to see what kind of reactions they get. But having said that, I think your perspective on email is a lot like my perspective on ads, like AdSense or having ad revenue.
Yeah.
Because, for example, you have a very intimate understanding of like, if you have more traffic, if you just slap ads there, you join an ad network, and then your ROI skyrockets based on, in proportion to whatever traffic you're getting. However, because I have not at all delved into that, to me, it's like, it's vague, right? It's kind of obscure. I can't kind of see it all. Maybe it is as simple as slapping ads. And I think it's the same case with email. Yes, maybe someone lands on a website about how to remove weeds, and that's all they're there for. Maybe they're just looking for that solution. They don't want to engage. They don't want to sign up for an email list. And that's true. Like, a lot of people don't convert. A lot of people that land on websites, it's like the conversion's definitely not like 50% or 40%. It's much lower. I think. But that being said, it's one of these things that you have to try and see your own results on it, because like otherwise it's like, oh, they do it, but maybe it works for them, but it's not going to work for me.
I should probably give it a shot and just to see.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess the first one was not starting an email list earlier.
Yeah. What do you have next?
Yeah, so let me start with the first of mine, and that is that's very simple but very hard, and that's sticking with a single thing beats picking the right thing. And I think we talked about this when we were talking about how to start a side hustle and like what are some of the most challenging things and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, when you just get started, it can be really hard thinking that I got to pick the very best idea, or I got to pick the right idea, or what's even worse is that you start something, but then you see what you think is a better idea, so you throw everything away and start from scratch, right? It's like, I think some call it the shiny object syndrome. It's like you start a site about gardening, but then you realize that starting a site about Pokemon might be better, so you start a site about Pokemon, and at the end of the day, you have like 10 different projects that you never finished, but that you only started and then jumped right off to a different project.
Yeah.
And like I the other day, I just typed up like the list of all the domains that I owned in the past, and essentially the first domain I ever bought was, or one of the first domains that I bought, the first one that I could find in my email was back in 2014, at the beginning of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, it took me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it took me, it was the seventh domain, so the seventh project, you could say, I guess, that I actually stuck with. And that was my aviation blog, Kane Aviation.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is that 3 of these were unrelated to aviation, but then 4 were just 4 different variations of something aviation related.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so keep in mind the dates that I'm going to be talking about now. So 2015, May 30th, I bought a site that I planned to write about Japanese aviation on.
Mm-hmm.
Less than a month later, 2 weeks later, June 13th, I bought how to become a pilot.net. Then another 2 weeks later, June 26th, I bought aspiringpilot.com.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of see that they're all on the same topic. And I was just thinking that, oh, this is better, this is better, this is better. But I never ended up like building anything in that time. I was just jumping around from domain to domain. And then finally on October 11th, 2015, I registered caneaviation.net, which I had for like the last 5 years or something.
Yeah.
Right. And which kind of became my first kind of successful site. And then, and the site that I run to this day. So if there's one thing that I think I not really regret, but I wish that I kind of knew earlier, that would be essentially that like those that stick to a certain thing are those that get paid. So you can jump from thing to thing and think that you're going to get paid off, that you're going to get some sort of payoff, right? So you just got to stick to one thing and just keep going. And that took me quite a while to understand. And seeing some people around me, it seems to be a pretty common problem.
It reminds me of probably my second site, Yokudeki, and that's the one that I wish I didn't shut down.
Yeah,
we were getting traffic and people were searching for it, and people were reading the stories that we put up, and I really wish I didn't close it down. Because again, by now it would have been so much bigger than it was then, simply through time. If I just stuck with it and I kept it, if I just kept it.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many like things that you can't control, right? It takes Google time to like start recognizing your site and start sending you traffic. And then there's things like who would have known about this COVID thing, right? It's like you start a travel blog and suddenly the travel blog's irrelevant, or you start a blog about gardening and suddenly everybody's gardening, so your site shoots up. And there's things that are out of your control, but unless you stick to something for like a decently long period of time and actually put in the work, you're never going to know the result, right?
Yeah.
But you're always sort of going to be satisfied because you're going to think like, oh, I started a new site because this one's going to be better. And then you jump to the next project because that's going to be better. And you always live for like better sometime in the future, but you never end up building anything.
It segues into the next topic that I'd want to mention. What I wish I knew earlier, and this is not exactly new or groundbreaking, but it is essentially what it is not working hard enough. I wish I worked a little harder. And the reason I say that is because there were times where like I had like really long-term projects for the site that took me days or even weeks to get done. Like where I really had to put my butt in the seat and do something across all languages and, pop out, for example, PDFs across all. And like I had a system for it and blah, blah, blah. And but the point was like it was like a lot of hard work, but at the same time, looking back on it, it was not that bad. And at the same time, I took plenty of breaks from my own blogs where
Yeah.
nothing was really done. So it kind of drives one point, I guess, this point back to me. It's like you can always do a little more. Yes, I'm not trying to say like hustle, 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 no sleep, no sleep.
Shout out
But
to Gary Vee.
yeah, but when it's time to do work, I think we can. I like to think about it. One can always do a little more, and yes, you should know your balances. You should know when it's time to go to sleep and turn off the computer. But when it's time to work, I think it's important to work hard and aim for the moon. Just like you're not gonna hit the moon, but like yeah. So that's like a general thought. Like I don't have one specific project I can point to, but I can definitely point to like me taking breaks and hiatuses from my own blogs, and like the site traffic doesn't really grow. In fact, it probably dips. And then looking at other like bursts of super strong effort on my end and seeing like that wasn't so bad. I should do more of that. And I think all of us can work a little harder on what we're going after. Because if we're working on it by ourselves, that's another thing. Like, maybe that's an issue with being in to side hustle, is that you're not really answering to anyone but yourself. And if you don't have strict rules for yourself, then you're just gonna kind of play around in like the shallow pool without ever actually getting any deeper.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think that's one of the most challenging parts about side hustles, and especially when you're starting out, when you see no traction,
Yeah.
or when you reach like a plateau, and let's say you reach like $1,000 a month or something, and then no matter what you do, you just can't break through and get to the next level. Yeah, I think that can be a real challenge because, like you said, there's nobody that's gonna force you to do it, right? It's all you just wanting to do it.
Yeah.
And like sometimes wanting's not enough. Sometimes you just got to force yourself and
Yeah.
and either build some sort of accountability system or build some sort of habits to be able to do these things that you're planning to do, or like somehow you just got to make yourself do it.
Exactly. And again, like I don't have a specific story to point to this. I do have like occasions that made me think of it a lot. And I think we all can kind of look back at our own projects and be like, I wish I did more.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Now on the flip side, though, even though you took some time off here and there from your blog, I believe that your income wasn't affected that much, right?
Not really.
Yeah, and I think that's like on the flip side, I think that's the beauty. Like you can take a 2-week vacation or something,
Mm-hmm.
and you're still going to earn pretty much the same money. And again, it's not like it's passive income. You still have to put in the work, but it's like the time that you spend working on the site and the time that the results show up during, there are two different periods, right? It's not like you go to work today and you earn like whatever $50 per hour today. It's more like you work today and you build something that then keeps earning you money for some sort of amount of time. Not forever, but it's not directly tied to your effort. So that can be the nice thing of working on blogs like yours. It's like, sure, you didn't work on the blogs during certain periods of time, but still doesn't mean that you didn't get any benefits from having worked on the blog before.
Yeah. But there's that kind of, maybe it's just me. There's always that kind of, not voice, but like gnawing sensation or feeling somewhere deep down inside where like, I could have done more. I should have done more.
Yeah.
Again, sorry?
Yeah, I absolutely understand that. And sometimes I feel the same way, where it's just like, oh, I shouldn't have just sat in front of the TV or something, and I should have been writing an article instead or something.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, it's also good not to be too hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Because I think hustling and working hard is important, but at the same time, also relaxing and just taking time off when you don't feel like working on something is equally important.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like if you don't feel like doing something, like you can sit in front of the screen and like think you're working, but you're probably not going to get much done anyways.
Yeah.
So you might just go for a walk or something.
All right. So what's next on your list?
Yeah. So next one is a bit less about the typical side hustles and more about like if you're trying to get some consulting work or if you're trying to do something that involves working directly with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's you don't ask, you don't get. It's very simple, right? Nobody's looking out for your interests, right? I would say everybody has their own interest in their mind. And of course, when the interest of somebody align with the interest of somebody else, then you can have a great partnership. You can have a great customer and a service provider relationship or whatever. But still, at the end of the day, if it's you that wants something, it's you that has to ask for something. And like as you know, I've written stuff for some magazines, for some aviation magazines, and I work with a bunch of consulting clients and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those sort of relationships, it always comes to like you asking for something, right? So it's like, if you ask for $10 per hour, you're going to get $10 per hour. If you ask for $20 per hour, you're going to get $20 per hour. If you ask for 50, you're going to get 50. If you ask for 60, you're going to get 60. If you ask for 100, you're going to get 100, right?
Hmm.
So it's like, unless you ask, one, you're always going to be lowballed.
Yeah.
And two, like oftentimes people are not even going to offer you something, right? Like on Upwork, for example, you have to ask if you can do the job for somebody, right? It's not like you get approached a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Same with like, as you know, I was very fortunate to have flown on a couple of NASA aircraft, on a couple of their research aircraft, and covered for magazines.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like sometimes people ask me like, how did you do it? And like all I did was I asked.
Yeah.
Like literally, I sent an email to NASA on one day, and they replied like, yeah, that should be possible, or something along those lines. And then I just sent an email to like a magazine editor, and I'm like, hey, you want an article about this? And he's like, yeah, sure. And then I had the editor write a letter for NASA that was like, yeah, we will publish this article, sort of thing. And again, it's all just asking the right people the right things, and like connecting the right dots.
Yeah.
And as somebody that's kind of naturally introvert and like doesn't necessarily enjoy talking to people a lot and things like that, it can be hard at first. But at the end of the day, if you want to do any sort of business that involves people, then you will have to ask.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes that might, even in like side hustles, it might mean that if an ad network requires 25,000 sessions a month for you to be accepted, it might mean that you have to ask them, hey, I still only have 20,000, but can I join? Or it might be asking somebody like, hey, can I guest post on your blog or something, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many things where you just have to ask enough people, and at one point or another, somebody will say yes.
So let's say I'm a new side hustler, right? What advice would you have for someone that started their website or blog or video channel, say YouTube channel? What would you tell them? How would you tell them to apply this concept? You don't ask, you don't get.
Well, I guess one is, first you got to be just aware of what's your position, right? So it's not like you start a new YouTube channel and suddenly you start emailing like Gary Vee and Richard Branson and like, help me here with some other famous businessman.
Tony Robbins, I don't know.
Tony Robbins,
Noah
Warren
Kagan,
Buffett,
Mark Zuckerberg,
whatever. It's not like you suddenly start emailing them, right? Because you can probably ask all you want. You're not gonna get their attention. So you definitely have to have something to offer to people, right? And like going back to the NASA situation, is like for NASA, I just listed the magazines that I wrote for before, and I was like, I could probably write an article into one of these magazines about the aircraft. And then once they said, yeah, that would probably work, then I just took that and presented it to the editor from the other way around, right? It's like, hey, do you want this article? I can write this thing where the access is pretty limited, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you always have to have something to offer. And I don't think it has to necessarily be something very provide like value directly.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's people that just feel like they want to mentor somebody, or there's people that feel like they want to help out somebody. That's why charities work, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think you always have to be like, I'm going to give you this explicitly, so please give me that. But still, you kind of got to understand what the person that you're asking is looking for. What is their job? What are they doing? What are sort of their motivations? What are their problems? How can you help them? And then you got to think about what it is that you want, and then just you kind of got to find a place where they meet, right?
Yeah.
So I guess to take it all the way back, I kind of went on a tangent, but to take it all the way back. So if you kind of want to live by this, which is you don't ask, you don't get, before you start doing that, you first need to know what is it that you offer and what is it that you're after.
I think as a second point, for anyone that started their own, whatever niche, whatever business they're in, it helps to have heroes and people to look up to, like someone that you want to work with, or someone whose work you admire, or some place where you want to have your product sold. And those could be the people that you could reach out to eventually.
Yeah, exactly. And we can create a separate episode on this, but when you reach out, you just got to be genuine, right? It's like you can't be like, hey, your site will really benefit from having my link on it.
Or my infographic.
Yeah, sure. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
So you got to be genuine. You got to offer some real value, and you got to know what the other person's looking for. And I think those are kind of the three key components.
I think like you can, even if you have no like immediate value to offer, as long as you're not trying to sell someone or trick someone. Because the thing is, both of us probably get a lot of emails about link building, or guest posting. But it's more obvious with link building. People send emails saying like, "Hey, I noticed so and so article on your website. I think your readers would greatly benefit if you included my link or my infographic here." But the downside, I mean, just the downside of this such a request is that, first of all, I mean, yeah, it's my audience, but my audience is mine. Like, how do you know what benefits them? First of all, you're dealing through me, right? So what kind of value are you bringing to me? So, I mean, the emails immediately just think of selling. Like, here's something I think you need for your site, but it benefits me.
Yeah, if you send an email like that, you probably think you're being smart, or you learn it somewhere and like somebody told you it works. But let me assure you that everybody can see through it, and like nobody's gonna be impressed. Everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, this guy's sleazy."
Yeah, and sleaziness is not how you sell.
Exactly.
Well, sometimes it is. It depends on the product, but not when trying to ask someone to do something for you.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So how about your next one?
All right. Next, I have it's okay to pay more, aka you get what you pay for. And I think all of us in general, all people have a bit of an aversion to paying more than X or too much for stuff. For example, if you think about jeans, right, or a shirt, there's probably if you see a certain price, there'll probably be like a you probably already have a certain baseline that you would be willing to pay for jeans and shirt. So if you see something that's extremely expensive, you're like, no shirt is worth that, and that's understandable. But I also think some people skew more to the extreme. Like, I just want free stuff, and if it's paid, I'm not going to look into it. And in the sense of building websites or having your own blog, you can have free themes, you can have free plugins, picture making software, you can have SEO tools that are free, and free is good. Like, it's enough to get started sometimes, or most of the time it's enough.
Yeah.
But oftentimes you'll quickly eventually notice that you get what you pay for. For example, with I used yeah, I used a Google Keyword Planner for my SEO, and ever since they redesigned it and revamped it and stuck it back somewhere inside reporting inside their ad section of the site, it's just been really terrible and really annoying to use. But I was relying on it for so long because it's free. It's like, oh, hey, whatever, I'll struggle through it just a bit because it's free. But if it, but it's like it's a penny wise, pound foolish type of decision. You're saving pennies, but you're missing out on the big wins. And I think it's, in general, like, I've used software like there's one called Canva.com, which is quite good in the sense of like making pictures. But when I need a lot of pictures, that's where Get Stencil, which is a paid version, or I think it's called Stencil now.
Yeah,
just completely wins out. If I need like 10 pictures for a certain blog entry, I can easily pop them out and save them via Stencil. Whereas with Canva, it takes like ages just to download one and unzip it. And it's at that point where you realize, all right, I need something more efficient, and maybe I should be spending a little more money for this.
Yeah. I think this is a great one, and I've been guilty of this one as well. And I think pretty much everybody, especially in the beginnings, it's necessary, because like if you don't have money to spend, you don't have money to spend, and you gotta essentially like turn whatever you have into more money first, right?
Yeah.
But I think especially if you're a side hustle or whatever starts making a bit more money, then this is absolutely an advice to follow. Now it's not to say that you should just be wasting money and like spend without thinking, right? But like you said, I think there's a saying that I love, which is penny wise, pound foolish, and it shouldn't be that. And like to me, it's essentially switching mindset from feeling like you're spending money to feeling like you're buying your time back. So like if you do any sort of work, right, and no matter how much you earn, if you do like a regular job, you're essentially trading time for money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you trade time for money, then of course you don't want to spend that money because you feel like oh, I spent like 10 hours to earn these $200, and now I just have to throw them away on like a SEO tool that I can get for free.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think it's more important to think about trading money for time, which is like, oh, I can spend $200 on this SEO tool and it's going to save me 10 hours of time. And then if you know that you can turn those 10 hours of time into $500 or $1,000 or $2,000, then it would be foolish not to do so, right? Yeah, and that kind of comes down to just knowing what your time is worth, and like essentially not feeling like you're wasting money, but feeling like you're buying back yourself time.
I think it's hard for anyone with a side hustle to grasp this. I think it's a lot easier grasped at, say, at a company level where you know if employee X gets paid X per hour, you know how much their time is worth. And so you kind of know, and if you take a look at their tasks and you start seeing that if something can be optimized, even if it requires an initial investment, then you're much better off optimizing that time and paying that price, like to buy a certain product that shaves 2 hours off of their day, because that means they could apply those 2 hours elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And I think personally for me, like Uber Eats is a great example of this, especially in like this Corona era. It's like I don't cook, and like sometimes my girlfriend cooks, but like for example when she's in the office or something, I have the choice of either going out and having something at a restaurant, right, which probably involves like 15 minutes walking to the place, and then like 20 minutes waiting for the food, then 15 minutes walking back, or I can just order Uber Eats and pay like whatever, like $7 more, $10 more or something.
Yeah.
And like at first it felt like a tremendous waste of money, but then I just realized it's like if it saves me an hour and it only costs me extra $10 or something, then it's a steal, right? Because I know I can turn that time, if I work during that time, right? I can turn it into way more than those $10. Or like if I just spend the time relaxing, then whatever. But it's still a pretty good deal.
Yeah. So you do Uber Eats a lot?
Not too much, but yeah, probably like at least once a week these days.
Okay. What do you order?
Burger King.
Burger King. Wait, that's a meal?
Yeah. So sometimes I order Burger King. Other times I order like Indian curry. Sometimes we order Thai. There's a bunch of different places around here that deliver, and it's nice food.
I've yet to make the transition from non-Uber Eats to Uber Eats, because like that part of convenience that kind of scares me in a way, because it's like, you know, at the push of a button, essentially you have someone come and give you food. I know there's in your case there's definitely an economic argument for it. It's like a slippery slide. Eventually I'll start Uber Eats. I know a slippery slide is actually a logical fallacy. It may or may not happen. It's not an argument to make, but I guess that's the irrational fear that I have. I'm going to start ordering for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, I think as long as you're careful, right? It's like if my girlfriend gets back from work and like she's tired, and of course I don't want her to like do cooking or something just so that we can eat, and like I can't really cook much beyond like instant noodles or something. So
really, not even eggs.
Probably with the help of YouTube, I could create something, but yeah, in any sort of practical sense, I can't cook, right? So, or I don't even have like much interest in attempting to cook. I guess that's a better way to put it. So yeah, then Uber Eats or eating out or something, it's a good deal.
Definitely, yeah.
Like Ramit Sethi says, like you can't try to like squeeze every single penny out of every single thing, right? So it's like unless you're going out and like spending more than you earn or something, then, and as long as you're like saving and investing and stuff like that, then why not splurge a little, or like make your life a bit more practical and simpler. And
we just covered it's okay to pay more, or you get what you pay for. So back to you, Keishi. What do you have next?
Okay, so the next one for me is, I guess, to tie it back to kind of what we're talking about here with the it's okay to pay more, but it's trading time for money is not the best way to do things. And now that's not to say that jobs are bad, or that like hourly consulting is bad or something. I work with clients that I charge hourly and stuff like that, but still is like nothing beats income that's kind of asynchronous, that's kind of tied to your inputs, but not necessarily tied to the time that you actually work on those inputs. Right? So whether it's building a blog, or whether it's doing something that's commission based, or whether it's like retainer sort of situation or something, like if you can provide value without having to provide an equal amount of time at what would be like a reasonable hourly rate or whatever, then I think that's a good situation to be in. And like with a job, it's not always possible, right? Because unless you're in like a sales job, because usually jobs are salaried. And the same thing with consulting, like usually you have to charge some sort of like reasonable hourly rate, even if you frame it as a project or as a retainer or whatever, it still has to kind of add up as a reasonable hourly rate at the end of the day. But I think with a side hustle, if you're starting one and if you have time, then you should try to build an asset like a blog, rather than try to do like freelance consulting or something.
Yeah. So like, have you traded your time in the past that kind of brought this realization to you?
Yeah, I still trade my time for money. I mean,
Yeah.
the nice thing about trading time for money is that it's immediate, right? It's like I do an hour of work for you, and you pay me my hourly rate worth of money, right?
Hmm.
Whereas when you're not trading time for money, unless you have like $1 million in bank and like living off the interest or something,
Yeah.
then it takes time, right? It's like you start a blog and you get nothing, 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 and then things starts things start growing. So you need to be able to afford the time between like starting something and it actually producing any sort of reasonable income.
Hmm.
So that's the downside. It's like if you're not trading time for money, then you're trading time for potential, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the beginning. So you have to be able to afford that. And if you have like 10 bills piled up on your desk, then it's probably better for you to trade time for money and pay those bills off rather than be late on them, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like I realized this at any like specific moment or something, but it's like I earned money in like many different ways. So I earned money for like a project based pricing, right? It's like I'll do this and you'll pay me that. I'm doing some work on hourly basis, right? So I just log the hours and then multiply it by the hourly rate. And I've got some retainers sort of structures in place where I get a certain fixed amount every month, and then I do
Hmm.
whatever needs to get done. And I've done some like commission based sales and blogs and things like that, of course.
Hmm.
And it's like when you do all these things, at the end of the day, you realize that trading your time for money is definitely the worst of all those deals, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of a gradual realization, I think, and as you experiment with different things. Now that said, the flip side of that is that I think diversification is good, and like in the very beginning, especially if you have like a regular job, then the best way to diversify is to keep your job and then start some sort of side hustle, which is what we talk about here all the time, where the side hustle is kind of the passive thing or the thing that's not necessarily trading your time for money, and the job is still trading time for money. And I think there's nothing bad about that. But yeah, I still think that I'm trying to switch as much of your income towards something where it's not directly tied to to the time you spend working on it
Hmm.
is definitely good.
Yeah. All right. Definitely agree with that. I have no counter argument for that. Who can not want to earn disproportionate money in relation to the time invested?
Yeah, exactly, and it's possible to some
Yeah.
extent or another.
All right. So next up on my list of things I wish I knew earlier, uh, I guess not having specific goals or also talking about goals with others. And I guess this kind of plays into what we talk about here on the podcast. You know, we set goals for each other, or for not for each other, for ourselves with our website stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
in the yeah. So and just being able to talk about this stuff kind of puts it more towards the front of your mind rather than, oh, maybe someday, one day, I could probably do this if only. Where it's kind of it gets pushed back into someday. Maybe I wish I could become, I don't know, a pilot or a cartoonist or whatnot. Whereas being able to talk about it with someone and talk about what actions you've been taking, it's probably a lot more productive in terms of getting the actual work done and having that goal become a close reality.
yeah,
And so yeah, so that's one part. And also in the past I didn't, well, I guess when I started I didn't have much goals. In a way that's good and bad, because like when you're not stressing over goals you can just enjoy the process. But at the same time, having like a specific number to hit is also very motivational. Like for example, I wanted to send 50 referrals a day through one of my websites. Now track that, and that 15, that number just became like a benchmark or like a something I maniacally aimed after. Like it doesn't matter whether I hit it or not, but always it was always nice to have something specific to aim for
yeah,
and see how close I came to it. And because I had something specific to aim for, it forced me to put out more work just to be able to get closer and closer to it.
yeah. I think goals are definitely important, and yeah, and when you hit them, it feels really good, right? When you don't hit them, it can be a bit depressing. But then again, I guess it comes to like how far do you actually stretch the goals without kind of overstretching? So that's something that sometimes I have trouble with, and like it's hard to set the right goal, right? Because
Mm.
like if you set it too low, then what's the point? If you set it too high, then it's kind of demotivating. So
Yeah.
like if you have any tips on
Oh,
setting,
easy. Yeah. Well, first of all, I think there's nothing wrong with setting a goal that's too low. Because let's say you hit it. Let's say it is too easy. I mean, one, let's say you hit it. You already got it done. So that's something worth kind of praising yourself, I guess. and two, you can always scale up. So I don't like the idea of just like, I don't know. It really depends on a person. My personal advice is aim low. You either should aim low and be happy, like, like, and just hit those goals just to make it easier for yourself. You can always scale up, or two, you can aim as high as you want. But when you start aiming high, and if it becomes too vague, that's when you can start like losing sight of how your effort will lead you to your goal. So if you do aim high and you do have a specific number in mind, at least have the ability to forgive yourself and just like deal with it if you don't hit that number. Because I know, like, I think a few months back I set that goal of like doing 15 articles for Amazon, and I didn't do any of those. And I know, like, in some form I could probably get it done somehow, but not in this current shape and situation. If you, I think it's similar to the gym. If you can lift 10 pounds, you should lift 10 pounds. But if you're trying to lift 100, it's not going to work out. You should probably go up like, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and eventually worry about the big boy numbers. So I personally go back to set smaller goals, like super realistic ones. But if you do set really big goals, make sure it's specific and make sure you're able to forgive yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a great advice. And do you have any thoughts on like input sort of goals versus output type of goals?
So could you define those?
Yeah, so an input goal might be something like, I'm going to call 15 leads a day, right? Whereas an output goal for me would be like, I'm going to reach $40,000 a month in sales.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, which are better, or should you set both? Or
I had both. Like, for example, my 50 referrals a day is not up to me in a way, because it means that 50 people from my site moved on and signed up for the service and confirmed. And it's like I can pump out as much articles as I want, but if I'm doing something wrong and people are not converting, then it's kind of out of my control. I say input goals are probably much more dependable. You should probably have input goals. I think it's also okay to have output goals, but output goals should be something that it's kind of like you have like practical, realistic goals, and you should have like crazy, audacious, like one day I'd like to have goals. And the output goal should probably be that, because a lot of it is outside of your control and you can't really beat yourself up over it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Because I know a person who was like, yeah, sure, let's call 10 people a day, and that's whatever, 50 people a week, and 10% of them close. That's five deals a week, and like each deal is $10,000, so that's $50,000 a week.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you look at the chain of thinking, like really the only thing you can control is like how many calls do you make and who do you make those calls to, right? And then you can of course you can like play around with the conversion rate, and like over time you'll learn what the conversion rate is and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the only thing that's really in your control is the inputs. So yes, so that's why I was kind of asking, because I can see benefits in both, but I was just wondering what your
I think the output goal kind of it's also motivating. But yeah, like you said, because it's so out of your control, it's not something you should rely on.
Yeah, and I guess it also kind of thinking about it kind of serves as a benchmark, right? So like, let's say you're going to call 10 people a day, and you keep calling 10 people a day for 10 years because you said you're going to do it, and that's your goal. But then you close no sales, then that's not good either, right? Like technically you stuck to your goal, but what was the goal good for if it brought no outcome? So I guess there needs to be some sort of target, some sort of output goal, like you had here with your 50 referrals a day.
Yeah, because like there were times where I hit 50. There were a lot of days where I did not hit 50, and like there was a kind of a frustration there. But I would say it was a good frustration, because it always pushed me back to like, I need to hit that goal, and the one thing I control is my input. It's just nice to have that kind of North Star to look for.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, you don't know how you'll hit it, but you want it. It's very motivating. I don't know what it is about it.
Yeah, I can see how that would be motivating, especially if you like. I was reading some article. It was citing some study about goal setting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember the exact numbers, but they've done an actual research figuring out like how many of the time should you be hitting your goals, and how many of the time should you be not hitting your goals for you to stay motivated.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really interesting, because like, if you keep hitting your goals all the time, then you're probably not challenging yourself enough, right?
Yeah.
And like when you never hit your goals, then it's just totally demotivating. Like if you don't hit a single goal in a year, then you're probably going to be pretty depressed. Yeah. And like they actually found there's some like specific number, specific ratio, I guess you could say, between the amount of times you hit your goals and the amount of times you miss your goals. That's just right to keep you motivated and keep you moving forward.
Do you know this number?
I don't remember it. Yeah, I can't find it now, but I'll try to look it up later, and if I can find it, I'll post it in the show notes.
I mean, it sounds like a person needs a healthy mix of failure and success.
Yeah, exactly. And too much of either will hinder your progress. I guess that was the kind of the point of the conclusion of the study.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, I would definitely agree there. You know, definitely. That's why I actually say it's better to have like really small goals that you can hit. That way, you have something under your belt.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it feels just good to just be ticking things off a list, which you could consider a micro goal in a way. And other times it's good to just dream big.
Yeah, because the micro goals at least give you the confidence that you did X, and sometimes it's all you need. If you could do X, then you could do goal Y. If you did goal X, then you could probably do goal Y.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think that's kind of what's motivating me in like building my online stuff. Is like, hey, if I can make 1 cent online, then there's no reason I shouldn't be able to make 10 cents, right? And if you can make 10 cents, no reason you couldn't make $1, and then no reason you couldn't make 100, and like no reason you couldn't make 1,000, 10,000, and so on and so forth. And it just like if you can do something once, you can do it multiple times, and just do that, and you'll make progress.
Exactly.
And the other thing that I think you brought up another great point here, which is like I find these chats, especially about like when we talk about our progress and our goals, really helpful, because like when you work on stuff for your work, then of course you've got your boss, right? And like when I work on stuff for clients, then like whatever the client needs to get done, that needs to get done, right? That's sort of the accountability partner there. But like when you work on side hustles that don't necessarily involve any team, or where you're the guy at the top of the team or something, then one, you have to keep yourself motivated. But I think it really helps to have some sort of like accountability partner.
Yeah.
Where like the goals that you set for yourself are not only set for yourself, but they're also made known to whoever the accountability partner is. Or like in our case, like, you know, my goals, I know yours, and also whoever's listening to this knows the goals, right? So I think that kind of serves as a motivation to actually hit them as well.
Definitely. I think it also helps if like the people are at least in the same line of work, because, you know, you could tell it to someone, and if they're not exactly doing the same thing that you're doing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the other person has to, one, they have to know what you're talking about, right? Because if you're a trader or something and you tell somebody, oh, I'm gonna make whatever return, and like the other person is just looking at like, what are you talking about? I don't understand you. Then what's the point? And two, I think it just, unless you're working on that sort of stuff, and unless you have at least some sort of interest in whatever the other person is doing, then it's like, why would you even care about whether the other person hits their goals or not, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So like, again, if someone was a trader and they're telling you, I'm going to make so and so, you'd be like, all right, and you're not really trading and you don't know what they're talking about. You're like, all right, that's great, that's wonderful. And you tell them, all right, I'm going to do like 10 posts by the end of the month for my blog. They'd be like, okay, you know, this, I guess because they're so out of touch and so far off from it, it's like they don't care, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you have next?
Okay, so next, I'm going to actually merge two that I have on our list in our notes here. And one is niche does not matter, and niche does matter. And the other one is passion does not necessarily equal profit. And considering that whatever your passion is, that's probably sort of the niche you would think of going into. I just merged these because they're talking about selecting the niche that you're going to build your side hustle in. And starting with niche does not matter is like, no matter what you think of, like, I'm going to start a blog about dogs, I'm going to start a blog about aircraft, I'm going to start a blog about whatever, bags or calendars or gadgets or photos or something, right? Whatever topic you choose, whatever niche you choose, there's going to be competition. That's one. Two, there's probably enough money in it as long as there's competition, right? So like whether you start a photography blog, or whether you start a aviation blog, or whether you start a tech blog or something, there's always enough money to be made to sustain one's living, as long as you know how to approach it and as long as you stay consistent. So in that sense, selecting the niche doesn't matter, because I believe that in any sort of niche there is an angle where you can make enough money to build a living off, right? But then what I think does matter is, especially in your beginnings, like if you choose something completely unrelated to anything that you know something about, then you're going to have a hard time sticking to that thing. Like I started a blog 2 years ago about a topic that I have no real interest in, but I think there's like a market opportunity.
Mhm.
And I kind of forced myself to write the first 20 articles, and then I never looked back until recently.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to reveal the topic because I'm actually going to be putting money into the blog again. But you know what it is about, right? And it's like, sure, there's a market, and and there's a huge market, but again, it's not something I'm passionate about, or it's not something that I necessarily like.
Mhm.
So I just found it hard to be the one working on it a lot, right?
Yeah.
And that's challenging in the beginning. Like in the beginning, all you got to do is just got to pick a topic and stick with it, and hopefully you get your first, even if small, but success, right? Because that will kind of motivate your next successes.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I think selecting a niche that you have zero interest in is counterproductive. And in that sense, selecting the right niche matters because if you don't stick to something, like we said in the beginning, and if you just keep jumping from a thing to thing because you got bored with it, or because you just can't force yourself to produce content or something, then you're never going to get that first small success, right?
Yeah. That's true. So you would say to people to pursue topics that they're passionate about first, right?
I don't think they necessarily have to be passionate about. Like in my case, my first sort of successful blog was my aviation blog, right?
Mhm.
And there it's clearly about passion. And honestly, for a long time, I wasn't even checking the analytics or something, and like I had no idea there were people coming to the website and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So that was truly built out of passion. But I don't think it necessarily has to be passion. I just think it has to be something you have interest in, right?
Mhm.
So like let's say you figure out that whatever electrical engineering is a great niche to be in, for example.
Yeah.
Then if you never even read an article about electrical engineering, or like if you hate electricity or something, then probably no matter how attractive the niche is, you shouldn't go into it, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think the selection does matter.
Hmm.
I don't think it matters what you select in terms of its like potential, because I think everything has potential in one way or another, and you can kind of tweak as you go. But it's more of like choosing something that you can stick to.
Yeah. And usually that means something you know about.
Yeah, exactly. Ideally, you'd know a thing or two about it.
Yeah. All right. All right. For my next one, I think you covered it to some extent when talking about sticking with single things, and mine is consistency.
I love that one. So can you elaborate?
But the reason I bring it up is, again, it goes back to the times that I took breaks from the blogs, and I would see the traffic or the ROI, the earnings kind of plateau, and then comparing that to like when I would do, say, articles on Amazon products. It's one of the few things where I could actually see effort put in equals improvement in ROI. Now, it's not a guaranteed thing for sure. I know this is something I noticed back in the day, and it's maybe because competition is higher now, it's a lot harder. But it was just like a very clear cut example of put in an article, earn a slight improvement in returns. But you can't get that. You can't get that slight return if you're not actually consistently putting out content.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like, again, it also goes back to the gym. Like the more you stick with it, the more you start seeing results. So I kind of saw this like principle in action in both areas, in fitness and in the side hustle. Like if I worked on my delts a little more than usual, a little more than just once a week or twice a week, and similar thing if I put out a little more Amazon articles, then I could start seeing the needle getting moved on both sides.
Yeah, I love this one, and I think out of all the ones that we talked about here, I think in a way it's similar to my number one, so to sticking with a single thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think combine the two, so combine sticking with a single thing and consistency, and I think that's the recipe for success in everything, pretty much.
Yeah,
like you choose a project, you stick to the project, and you're consistent with executing the project.
Yeah,
and then you're gonna know you either have a winner or you have a loser, right? Because I think unless you stick with a project and unless you're consistent about it, you will never know if it was a winner or loser. You will only know that you failed, but you will not know if you failed because you failed to execute or because you chose the wrong idea or what the reason was, right?
Yeah. There were times I was consistent with with a not so profitable niche, and by niche I mean language. I think I told you about this one. Where like no matter how much content I threw at this topic, at this language. It was just like it was like literally trying to squeeze water out of a rock. But that was like an example of like consistently going 100 miles in the wrong direction. But still, it's a good practice to have. You'd rather have consistency versus none.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like similar to when we were talking about you don't ask, you don't get. It's like you can consistently email all the big Hollywood stars. The chances that it will consistently work are very slim, right? If you're just beginning.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of thing. You got to be consistent, and you got to be doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But again, if you just email one person and call the entire campaign a failure because you don't get a reply, then the only real reason you failed is because you didn't stick to it.
Exactly. And that's the one thing that you can't control. It's the sticking or it's the input.
Yeah, and I think like thinking about it now, and I'm just looking at the Atomic Habits book on my desk.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other benefit of consistency is like you get into a sort of rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
and like you build habits, and like when you have habits and rhythm, it's much easier to stick to a thing than when if you're doing things. What's the opposite? Sporadically, erratically.
Yeah, sporadically.
Yeah. So like I think you asked me this before when we were talking about some other topic, and I also got it asked a couple of times, but by a couple of different friends. But the question was like, why do you publish? Why do you have like a 1 month backlog of content rather than publishing it all at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
and like have it start ranking in Google right away? And like my answer to that is always consistency. And it's like I just feel I can stick to thing longer if I'm publishing like, let's say 2 articles a day, rather than if I publish 60 articles on August 1st and then 60 on September 1st and then 60 on November 1st or whatever, October 1st.
Yeah.
Right. It's like if you can get some sort of consistency and some sort of granularity, then I think that's more helpful in sticking to a thing long term.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, putting in like short bursts of really focused work sounds great and all, but if this is something you want to maintain for a long period of time, working hard for 5 hours in one day and then not working hard at all for the next week is not exactly a better solution, or it's not better, because putting in a little bit of consistent work has much better returns, I think, than just like a one shot type of work effort.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people a lot of time we like to look for like big wins, because I mean it's exciting, right? It's exciting to make like whatever tens of thousands of dollars on one deal or something.
Mm.
But a lot of times even those big wins are like an accumulation of like really small consistent steps forward.
Yeah.
It's like, what is the saying? It's like it's a 10-year overnight success or something.
Or a journey starts with a single step or something.
Yeah, that as well. I think that was in the Tao of Pu, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Which we recommend you read, listeners.
I'll put the link in the show notes, also for Atomic.
Yeah.
All right, so
all right, the next.
Sir?
Go ahead. I was gonna say, like, the next one, use simple solutions. I think it's a great thing, but I don't have a good story for this one. Like, I know it's a good thing, but I can't remember how I applied it to my blogs.
Yeah, I think it's a great one. I can't think of an example off the top of my head either, but simple solutions always beat complex solutions as long as they achieve the same outcome.
Yeah,
I think there's no doubt about that. And in a way, I think it ties to my last one, which I believe is the last one overall, and we can kind of try to remix those two. But my last one was not focusing on systems earlier, and like I mean that on a number of different levels. Like one would just be through like writing down standard operating procedures and guidelines and things like that. Mm-hmm. 2 would be learning how to delegate in an efficient way and in an effective way. And 3 would kind of be what you're talking about here, which is use simple solutions, which is like just mapping out different processes and like just thinking about the steps that it takes me to do different things, right? Because when you're starting your side hustle or when you're starting a blog or something, like you're the one wearing all the different hats. You're the one coming up with the topic. You're the one finding the keyword. You're the one writing the article, editing the article, adding the pictures, scheduling the post, publishing the post, promoting the post, whatever, right? You're like a one-man band. But if you want to grow, you got to start kind of streamlining your process and bringing other people on board, right? Whether it's in like a freelance, part-time, or full-time capacity or whatever it might be. And to do that, I feel like understanding how your business works is really important. And what are the systems? Like even if you don't know that you have a system, you probably have some sort of system, right? Like you go to this site, you get an idea of 10 keywords, then you pick the best one, then you take the best one and you create the outline, then you outsource it to somebody on Upwork, and you also have probably some specific way in which you're finding the right writers on Upwork, right? Like the correct job posting format, and like the right questions to put into the applications and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think starting to document all this is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And to tie it back into your use simple solutions, it's like if you create like a simple flowchart of how all these things work, then just by looking at that flowchart, like you start seeing places where you can simplify things, right? So for example, actually I have a pretty good example for yours, I think. So I'll help you here.
Go ahead.
Like I have my virtual assistant creating featured images for one of my blogs.
Mm-hmm.
And the original process was I would write what I want written on the image into Notion as a comment. Then I would download a photo from Deposit Photos, which is like a stock photo library that I use.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would upload it to Google Drive into our shared folder that I have with the assistant. And then he would create the image, right? So again, I'd leave the comment in Notion. I'd find the picture. I'd download the picture. I'd upload the picture. He'd download the picture. He'd upload it into Stencil, and he'd create the image. It's pretty complicated for making one freaking simple image, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of steps
exactly
on paper.
So what I did was I just wrote down how to download a photo from Deposit Photos, which is like a simple 3-step procedure, right? Like log in, click on the link, and download the photo.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do now is I still search for the photo because I like to choose the photo that appears there. But I just when I write the comment in Notion where I add like I want this text on the picture, I also paste the photo link there from Deposit Photos, so I don't have to download it and upload it and so on, right? So the way I simplified it is I just put the text and the link in Notion, and then the virtual assistant goes in and he knows that he's got to put the text in the photo and that he's got to download the photo from Deposit Photos. So it eliminated like 2 or 3 steps for me, and I think that's one like sample example that I just thought of in terms of how to simplify your processes and how to simplify your solutions. Because at the end of the day, I get the same picture out of the process, right? But now it's like 1 or 2 less steps for me, which probably saves me a couple of minutes every week, and it saves me a lot of frustration and like doing really boring tasks, downloading a photo and uploading it to Google Drive and so on. So I think to implement what you were just saying, like one of the ways to do it is to just look at the tools you're using, look at the processes you have, and kind of see where you can take shortcuts, because there's no reason not to take a shortcut if it gets you to the same place.
Yeah, but at the same time, you should take the time to write out your systems just to see how it all flows, and so you could stand and look at it from like a third-person perspective.
Exactly, and like I think if you're down in the trenches and you're doing everything, it's hard to even realize that you're actually following some sort of system, right?
Yeah.
It kind of comes naturally to you, and you're like, oh, I'm going to type this up, or I'm going to publish this post, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to look at some competitors or something. But like when you sit down and you just, like, I recommend a tool called Whimsical. I'll put the link in the show notes because I'm too lazy to spell it out. But it's like a
WHIMSICKAL. Whimsical.
I don't
Visual
think
workspace.
Is there a K?
Yeah. No, not a KC. Yeah. WHIMSICAL. Flowcharts?
Yeah, exactly. It's a really nice tool for creating flowcharts, and you can create up to 4 for free. So what I recommend is just open it up, open the blank page, and start putting boxes down. Start putting boxes down, like whatever. The first box might be come up with a topic idea. The second box might be outline. Third might be research, whatever it is, and just lay down the process down to the very little steps. Like I go to Amazon and copy this link and paste it here, or whatever it is. And then you realize there's so much opportunities for like either outsourcing it to somebody because it's such a simple mechanical task that that is really easy to teach someone, or like maybe I don't even need to do this step, right? Maybe you find out that you can just delete this step and just connect 2 other steps directly together and achieve the same outcome or whatever. But like unless you put it in front of yourself visually, I think it's really hard to do.
Yeah, that's a great point. One thing I know, like I did take shortcuts with one of my blogs where I pump out like 10 pictures per post. And you know, like how you kind of want to have your pictures variated, so you choose a different background for each one. Like this one will be something blue, this one will be something red. So I just I guess you could call it a shortcut. Like I decided to, instead of varying up the backgrounds, just make it all the same and just like copy and paste the text in and just download it like that, because that, like you said, if that shortcut makes the job go faster, and if it's good enough for now, if it doesn't move the needle, then why not do it?
Yeah, exactly. And you just reminded me of another great example that I was watching this video, this interview with Graham Stephan, who's like really well known personal finance YouTuber nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's probably got like 1 million subscribers or something.
Better than Ramit?
Probably not as famous yet, but he's making like $200,000 a month from his YouTube channel, so he's doing very well for him. But anyways, what he was saying is that like he used to make different thumbnails for different photos for thumbnails. Like how they make those like weird faces and like curious face and smiley face and like the thumbnail photos. And he used to shoot new ones over and over again. But like he realized that he's only making the same 3 or 4 faces over and over again. So now he's just reusing old photos.
That makes sense. Yeah,
exactly. And it's like nobody notices, and he doesn't have to like shoot himself every week or every day or whatever for creating what's essentially the same photo as last week's.
But he'd only know that
so I think
once he
that's
became
also
aware of the process, and for that you have to write down your process.
Yeah, and I also think it's good to be asking yourself, what am I doing that I don't really have to be doing, or what am I doing that doesn't really move the needle at all?
Yeah,
and that way you can simplify things.
That's true. All right. Anything else?
No, I think we've covered more than enough mistakes, if you can call these mistakes, or things that we wish we knew earlier or wish we did earlier.
I think it's also good to talk about them and just to bring it back to our mind, so because ultimately everything that we talk about, we go back to ourselves. Like, am I still doing this? Am I actually doing this or not?
Yeah, exactly. It's good to be reminded of it, because like some old habits, some old bad habits might come back, and just talking about them might make you realize that that you should rethink things.
Yeah.
And things like that. So yeah, definitely good talking about this.
Yeah. So ultimately, none of these are exactly regrets. These are just mistakes made along the way that ultimately can and will be corrected or have been corrected.
Yeah, not even mistakes, right? They're just part of the journey, I think, and it's inevitable that there will be things that when you look back, you're like, oh, how was I so stupid to do this thing? But then at the same time, it's like, if you didn't do that thing, then you wouldn't be where you are today. So it's never really stupid, right? It's always just it's just part of the learning process. And like I don't know about you, but for me, like somebody can tell me something 10 times and I will listen, but sometimes I still do it my way.
Mm-hmm.
And then like after 10 days of doing it my way, I realized that person was right, and I just go back and like start from scratch using the other person's way, right? So like sometimes you just got to experience to realize that what you're doing is not right. I don't have just listening will work.
Yeah, because sometimes you're so convinced of your own thing that anyone can tell you differently. You probably won't listen, but you kind of need to go through your own mistakes before you realize that you're making a mistake.
Exactly.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into this Side Hustles and Stuff podcast with Keishi and Yuriy. If you want the show notes for everything that we talked about today, all the books, all the tools, visit sidehustlesandstuff.com/E17. That's the link to the show notes. Again, sidehustlesandstuff.com/E17. Also, if you do want to start your own website, again, visit the show notes. Check out Bluehost. Bluehost is a hosting service where you can buy your own website and you can finally launch your project out into the world, whether it's blogs, t-shirts, comics, art, music, whatever that you want to try and launch into the world. Check it out, get a website, and put your project in motion.
That's a great call to action.
Thank you. Now I don't know what to say. Thank you for listening to this Side Hustles and Stuff podcast with Keishi and Yuriy.
Thanks. Talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week. It's blooper time. All right.
That's part of the podcast.
Yeah, it's mostly me, I think.
Recording.
Ready?
Yep. Recording. Okay, let's cut this out then.
Okay.
Let's cut this entire thing out.
Okay.
And let's talk about Pringles first.
Okay.
Let me delete this.
Did I get cut off?
Yeah, you got cut off.
When did I get cut off?
My girlfriend's running around and doing like weird faces. Okay, she's out.
Oops.